Hello everybody, thank you for being here to Talking Pictures presented by Afters. My name is Danny Vallant. We have got a hashtag for tonight. I'll introduce the hashtag before the guests. Is that bad protocol? MIFF 2015 TP for Talking Pictures. Now let me introduce our illustrious guests. Jonathan Gold is the excuse for us all to gather. He's an eminent voice on food and the subject of MIFF film City of Gold. If you haven't seen it, it's screening on Saturday and you must. He's restaurant critic for the LA Times and contributor to magazines including Lucky Peach and Saveur. He's almost certainly the only Pulitzer Prize winner in this room. Anyone want to correct me? He's one of the few restaurant critics around who can close a restaurant with his words, but he's more often championing the restaurants that he eats at. He has a massive following on Twitter, but I'm not sure how he feels about Instagram. Emily Naismith, I came across her via her hilarious emoji food reviews. She's a background in social media, advertising, and is a digital all-rounder at the thousands. She's a creative, but she doesn't really like that word. She's also definitely got the best earrings in the room. Welcome to Emily.
Thanks.
Declan Lee is an owner and founder of Gelato Messina, Australia's leading new wave gelati brand. A supersized social media presence has contributed to its success. Declan has a background in marketing and branding, plus DJing, promoting and event management. He lives in Sydney, where he's also been a successful restaurateur. Comedian Kate McLennan, hello, is half of the duo that delivered the popular, funny and clever YouTube series The Catering Show, which fondly savaged foodies by showing the cooking adventures of a self-conscious gourmet and her allergy-ridden friend. I was thrilled to learn that they're working on series 2. Shane Dallaire is chef at Maha Restaurant and the upcoming kebab joint Biggie Smalls, look out Smith Street. He also presents the Spice Journey TV series, now third series about to come out, right? And is a fresh and uncensored voice on everything food. In the age of the stage-managed chef, he keeps it all very real. Welcome, Shane, and welcome to everybody. So we have got a nice, juicy 90 minutes for this chat. I'm going to leave heaps of time for questions because I'm sure you've already got some and more will come up during the course of the evening. So please have them ready and pepper us towards the end. So I want to talk about how we eat out now and what we're up to. Last night, a bunch of us were out for dinner at Dainty Sichuan. Yum. Someone brought out their phone and then suddenly everyone's phone was out and then people were taking photo of the food, other people were taking photo of the people taking photos of the food, and I felt like the space-time continuum was about to shatter. Now, what is going on? Is it okay? Is it enough already? Who wants to take it up?
Well, I do it all the time.
Okay.
I'm the annoying person in my group of friends that won't let them eat until I've taken a photo of their meals as well as mine. But I draw the line at standing on chairs to get the perfect top shot.
Okay.
I think that's too far.
You haven't done that yet.
You have limits.
Yeah. I have standards.
So I know, Declan, ice cream can be a tricky one to photograph.
Can be very tricky, but I am not against the idea. We have a business that has benefited greatly from people standing around and taking way too many photos. Very shareable. When I from our point of view, it's contributed. Like I think the core of our business is still that we make fantastic product, and without that you can't have a successful business. But I think these things perpetuate the machine rolling forward, so we're kind of all for taking photos. You're all right, you can come down.
Yeah, I was just at a restaurant about 20 miles outside Modena in a tiny town called Rubiara that probably makes the best pasta in the world. It's just pasta that will make you dream. But it's owned by an old cuss who cares about nothing but making his balsamic vinegar. And he actually frisks you at the door, takes your phone out, puts it in a lockbox, locks it, and gives you the key.
Oh my gosh.
Wow, that's pretty serious, because I have heard of other things along those lines. I think there's a restaurant in France that suggests you leave your phone, like check your phone. And I think various restaurants have tried discounts if you don't bring out your phone or if you check it at the door. As a restaurateur, Shane, what do you think about people endlessly photographing the food that you put in front of them?
I think it's good when people photograph what we're doing, because it gets the message out. It's not good when it starts to disrupt, from a restaurant point of view, when it starts to disrupt other guests. In a restaurant like Maha, we get a really diverse group of people. Some people who are coming just to have a fun night out and love the food. Some people who are celebrating an occasion. And some people who really want that sort of intimate table in the corner. When there's somebody next to them, full flash, going crazy, one shot you can kind of go, okay, it was a great... But when it's like chick... it gets a bit much. And when they will stop the waiter from, can you just not explain that for a second? I have to get the right shot. Well, then it kind of gets a bit, well, you're taking the piss. You know what I mean? But it's like, from a business point of view, it's great that we can actually get some presence out on social media. And the people who are passionate about the food that we're cooking, that they want to remember it and they want to share it and they want people to know they're at Maha. But there's a line. There's a line. That's why we're doing Biggie Smalls, because there's no line at Biggie. You can photograph it, tattoo it, do whatever the hell you want to do to it. But it depends on the dining situation, I think.
Right,
in the scenario. It's a sort of, you've got a social responsibility to the people around you.
Yeah.
It's sometimes sushi chefs especially take ask-ins, because there's really, like, if you're sitting at a sushi bar, there's really like a 7 to 12 seconds where the sushi is absolutely at its ideal. And if you spend your time trying to pose it, you lose it.
Wasn't there an article a couple of years ago that I read about a restaurant in New York that had a really high turnover of tables, and they did a study, I think, into how much time was wasted.
Yeah, I saw that as well.
With people taking photos, just the delay, and, can I take your order? Can you give me a minute? I haven't looked at the menu yet. Or, just people just using so much, they're checking themselves in. They're taking photos of the menu. They're taking photos of, they're looking up. And I do this as well, like going to a restaurant and look at, what does everyone else eat when they go to this restaurant?
Right.
Like, you're Googling that as you're sitting at the table, and like all this stuff that
do
they
that before
found
you get there.
Yeah.
Google it before you get, do your research before you get there.
My mistake.
And the study was probably dubious, but they were saying it was basically a turn a night, which is a lot.
Yeah, it's a hell of a lot.
That really slows it down. There's a grumpy restaurateur blogger that I follow, and he writes a blog called Restaurant Manifesto. And he wrote a post recently about the barrier that, say, a site like Yelp or one of those review sites or Instagram feed puts between the server and the diner, because instead of, perhaps asking a server for a recommendation or talking to them about what's on the menu, people are just like, what's the most popular dish? And you get to a situation where everyone's ordering the same dish, no one's exploring the menu, and I imagine that must be quite frustrating.
Well, we don't have that problem. At Maha, you get what you're given. No. People choose a price point or how many courses they want, and then there's we kind of build a menu around that. But you do get people coming and say, "Oh, I read on Urban Spoon that the 6 course is just way too much, and I should just stick with the soufre." Well, maybe the person that came in doesn't really eat much and doesn't really. We try to give a few different styles of menus. Maybe they do really want the rustic style menu. That's great, but we do offer we call it unrestricted dining, unrestricted Middle Eastern food as well, where we can be a bit more experimental. Just because it was on Urban Spoon doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean it's wrong.
And half the reviews start, "I'm not really a kebab person."
I was at Chin Chin's a couple of years ago, and Chin Chin's, the tables are so packed together, and I was sitting there with my partner, and it was after the comedy festival a couple of years ago, and I was quite tired, and just sitting there next to this couple who were clearly on a date, and they were just, when you're sitting in those close proximity, you can hear everything that they're saying, and that is a bit like crack cocaine to me. It's eavesdropping in on other people's conversations like that. But there was taking the photographs of each other's food, and like he would get up and come around to get the angle on her, and then she would go around, and then they started talking about that, this guy, he was on MasterChef this week. So, and so you're like, oh, God, that's why you're here. Right. And then the rendang, they got a rendang, and she goes, yeah, it's not very moist, is it? And I'm sitting there going, it's not supposed to be moist, it's a rendang.
You're talking about the food, right? Yeah.
Well, and then then he started saying, oh, you should never use the word moist. And then they just kept having
especially
this
in front of Shane, apparently.
I'm not on a date, I'm getting lost.
But just this, I guess that experience of that they were clearly, there was a status kind of, not just literally a status update involved in going on this date to this restaurant, but we're going on a date to a restaurant that a guy, the guy from MasterChef has been, runs this restaurant, blah, 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 that it's all kind of, we're ticking all the boxes here. Yeah. We've ordered what we've been told. We're having this perfect night on our, perfect first date. It was just like, I just wanted to...
Just have dinner. Yeah. I mean, it does bring us to the question of trophy diners, which is something I'd love to talk more about. There's another film at MIFF called Foodies, and it's about, it trails 5 bloggers or people that are going around and doing exactly as you say, just ticking those restaurants off a list, notching them on the gun belt. What do you think about going out to eat with that in mind?
I put out this list in the Los Angeles Times every year of the 101 best restaurants in Los Angeles in order. And the paper actually provides like a little checklist, and there's a social media app that lets you report how many of the restaurants you've been to. And, wow. and by the end of the year or by the end of the period, there are always people who have been to all 101 or who are completely irate because they've done 98 and the other 3 have closed, and they'll never be able to do it. It's peculiar to run into those people.
Yeah, it's interesting, but yeah, obviously they want to do it and the list serves a purpose. I mean, what do you think a list like that is for?
Well, it is supposed to sort of order your way of going through the city. It is something you keep in your purse or the glove compartment in your car, and when you're in a neighborhood you're not ordinarily in, you'll look up and see if there's a restaurant there. I mean, the same as the good food guide here.
Sure. Yeah.
But if somebody tried to go to like everything with a hat, that would be a dismaying way to spend one's days, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it'd be a job.
There's nothing wrong with the pursuit of great food. I mean, there is nothing more enjoyable for me than having great food. So I don't have a problem with it per se, but you want to get into the inner corners of every city and every area, don't you, to try all sorts of different things. As you say, trying to chase down multiple hatted restaurants is probably not my cup of tea.
The only time it's an issue is when people come with an agenda because they've read a review, or they're coming to prove a review wrong or right, or they're not just coming to have dinner, or they're not just coming for an experience. They're coming with an experience. They may have read something on a review saying, "Oh, I really like whatever restaurant for some reason, but this thing really annoyed me," and they come looking for that. And if you go looking for that, you're going to find it. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, if you're looking for something, you're going to find it. So it's great that there's all these things about where to dine and what to look for, and this is great and that's good. But when they come looking for the negative, then it's really hard to. You're already on a backwards step. So that's the only time it's sort of negative, I think. Most of the time it's great because they come looking, and if they've read a great review and they're excited about being there, they're really pumped and looking forward to a great experience. But when they've come looking for holes, then it's bad.
But it's still don't sometimes reviews send customers to your restaurant and they all want like one particular dish that you get completely tired of making?
Yeah, definitely. I'm so sick of cooking 12-hour roasted lamb shoulder and Turkish delight filled donuts. But they're probably going to send my daughter through university. So you know what I mean? Like we'll keep cooking them, and we can't take them off the menu. And they were great in 2008 when we started them. It's a staple dish. We've got it right. We cook it. We serve it. But it'd be nice to be able to use another protein on the main course.
Yeah, sure.
You know?
And you got to stand there for that whole 12 hours.
Yeah, I sit there and watch it cooking.
Yeah. I know that's an issue at Supernormal where the salted caramel and peanut butter parfait, which has been on the menu I think since they started, and they can never take it off. And I met one of the young pastry chefs who's just like, we put such good desserts on the menu and the waiters cannot sell them. Everyone has to have that dish that they've heard about. It is delicious, but I guess there's chefs working really hard to create other fantastic things.
And you can't go against it. That peanut butter parfait is pretty shit hot.
So you're perpetuating it.
When I go there, I eat it.
So they need to drop their standards, you know, just put a dodgy batch out for a week.
I don't think it would matter. Lou will still say it's great.
Don't know the difference.
But the thing about Supernormal is the lighting in there is bad, so you can't get a good Instagram of the peanut butter parfait.
That's true. That's
great.
true.
I like you're the only one that's noticed that.
So it's popular but ever mysterious.
There's a restaurant in Sydney, it's still going, called the Boathouse, and they were really famous for their fish pie. And the head chef there actually left because so many people ordered this fish pie. He just got so bored that he moved on. And it's amazing. It's the only thing I've ever used to eat there.
I know I've had chefs talk to me about dishes that I recommend they can't take off the menu. And I can't see any of them actually leaving, but it would seem like a logical step.
You can put the price up.
Yeah.
I don't know. We haven't put any prices up for a while, but it's great.
And sometimes they'll take it off. You know, they're so tired of serving the warm Northern Peruvian style shrimp ceviche to every single person that comes, and they just take it off the menu. It's like,
Well, Declan, you took my favourite ice cream off the menu.
What was it?
I think it was a special anyway, but it was the salted caramel ice cream with white chocolate covered potato chips and duck fat caramel.
Yeah, it's
Oh
called.
my goodness.
Yeah.
We stoned or what?
Yeah. It was called So Wrong It's Right. Yeah.
It's really good.
I like how you said that. You took it off.
Yeah. And I want to take it up with you now.
Yeah.
That's right.
In public. Yeah.
So I've heard that Sydney's Grounds of Alexandria has a stylist on staff, and yes, they arrange the flowers in the garden and all that, but they also work with the kitchen to make everything look beautiful. Do you, like Shane as restaurateur or as diners, do you feel like dishes are being created to be pretty, or?
The only time we create a dish for it to look good in a photo is when we're doing a cookbook. Like if we just finished shooting the new Spice Junior cookbook, and then we spend a lot of time to make sure we're using the right plate and the right light and the right backdrop, and making sure we haven't used that sort of sequence of colours too many times, and making sure it looks really good on camera, because sometimes when you look at something with your eye, it looks great, and then you see it on camera, you're like, wow, it's wrong. When we're cooking in the restaurant, we make sure we can get it out consistently at a high level, and that it tastes good and it works for the kitchen, it works for the customer, but never really think about how it's going to look on somebody's iPhone or Samsung or whatever they're using.
You still want it to look good.
100%.
The plate looks beautiful.
You eat with your eyes.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it looks like shit, it's going to taste like shit. 100%. So we want it to look as best as we can to our ability, but we never think how it's going to photograph, if that's the question.
yeah, I mean, but the look of dishes and how the look of dishes changes the way they taste and the way we appreciate them has been going on since antiquity. I mean, Apicius wrote about it in the 2nd century, and you have the very best, most famous chefs of the 19th century. People like Carême spent probably 2/3 of the time making these elaborate spun sugar pagodas that their sweets could perch under.
Yeah, right.
They weren't thinking of Instagram, but
well, if you think of like zinc engraving as Instagram of its day.
yeah.
It's funny when you get a dish. I'm not very good with petite eating. Like you go to a degustation and there's many dishes, and it might be fantastic and beautiful, but you get this tiny little bit with a smear, and I eat quite with a lot of gusto, and I just want to shovel the whole thing in my mouth, and I enjoy it, but I'm a little bit disappointed that I have to be so delicate with it. I like grabbing things and eating them with my hands. And so when I see something that looks very delicate, I'm immediately slightly put off, strangely.
Yeah.
Well, I think some restaurants encourage people to go Instagram crazy there. Like Top Paddock, they've got like 30,000 Instagram followers or something, and they always reshare pictures that people have taken there. So of course you want to get shared by someone that has 30,000 Instagram followers, so then that makes more and more people want to go there and take photos and go crazy there. So I think that some restaurants love it.
Yeah.
Oh, we love that people take photos of the food. And some of the photos that people, because we repost, and we haven't got 30,000 followers or whatever, but we repost and encourage people to use social media because it's a great tool, and it's a great way of getting your voice out there. But it's hard when we put so much effort into making things look good, and then someone just goes chuck and then posts it. If it looks like crap, we're not going to repost it because it's our brand. You know what I mean? Like, we've actually spent a lot of time to get it right, and if it looks bad, if anything, we're going to try to push it aside because we want it to look the best it can. We think, well, it didn't look like that when it left the kitchen from my eye. Maybe in the kitchen, in the restaurant when you've got, the lighting's not great for photography, but better for dining. It just didn't come great on your iPhone.
Yeah, sure. Okay,
so you're getting cranky about people's ability to take photos.
No, I'm a terrible photographer. Like, when I've ever photographed food, I look at it and think, yeah, but I just want people to know I'm here. So I'll put it up. But it's not because I think it looks great. And generally I write like a disclaimer saying, I hope it did the food justice or something like that.
Right.
But I'm not very good.
Yeah, there was a place in LA that had for a while an actual light table, so you could pick up your dishes, walk over to the light table, compose your photo, take it, and go back to your seat.
Yeah, our communications girl just did that. She brought this like little box thing you unfold and put it in. And I said, that's great, Nate. Where are you going to put that? And she said, we're going to put it in table 200. I said, but it's generally booked. And she said, but she actually wants to try that. She said, oh, well, I've heard that restaurants are doing it and people are taking their food up. And I'm not opposed to it, but I just don't understand why you would.
It's
That's
so embarrassing.
Yeah, I was just thinking.
It's embarrassing?
It's embarrassing taking photos in restaurants. Like, I think when I do one or two, I feel okay about it, but when I'm writing a review for work or something and I have to take photos of like other people eating or just the general look of the restaurant, I just want to die. Like, I can't do it.
I can do it overseas, but I can't do it here. Like, if I'm traveling, I have no issue with pulling out a kit. Like, and my partner, he loves taking photographs, so he'll pull out a massive camera. He'll do a lens change. He loves it. But you ask him to do it, like, he's constantly putting my phone away when we're at restaurants, and he's don't attract attention to us.
I think the selfie's more annoying than a food photo in a restaurant. Especially with my wife, when the first selfie's never fucking good enough. And then they ask the waiter from the other table who's serving, excuse me, do you mind taking a photo of me and my husband?
But so that it looks like a selfie, though.
Hey?
But so that it still looks like a selfie.
I'm like, oh, man. And then she'll look at it, no, stay there. No, can you do it again? That's worse than a food photo, I reckon.
Maybe a selfie stick, Shane, could be next best.
No, they're sin. I hate those things.
Okay. Let's talk about this word, foodies. Foodie. Who wants to own up to being a foodie? Or does that word make everyone feel a little sick in their mouth? But
I think I am.
Yeah, I think I'm a foodie if it means that you are completely addicted and your whole life is governed by it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My wardrobe is 50% food-related clothes, so I'm probably a foodie.
that's cool.
But nobody, there's that problem with the word that almost nobody who actually is a foodie will call themselves foodies. I mean, foodie is what your maiden aunt says she is because, she will order that extra appetizer once a year.
Right.
And one of the problems with the word is there really hasn't, as much as it makes all of us cringe, there really isn't a word that's come up to replace it that's any better.
Yeah, I don't want to say I'm a gourmand or a gourmet. It sounds
or a bon vivant.
A bon vivant, no, not this week.
An Epicurean.
Yeah, that's not really floating my boat either. So we're stuck with it. Okay, Foodies Anonymous. We're all that's us.
Wasn't I read a book that said how like the rise of the foodie is almost like another type of eating disorder. And that's, I mean, you know, the level of obsession that you have with food is kind of akin to approaching food in a disordered way. It's like my partner and I talk about food all the time. Like from the moment he wakes up, he'll get on his iPad. He's like, "What do you want for dinner tonight?" I'm like, "I don't know. I can't think about what I want for dinner," but I will be thinking about what I want for dinner. And it's like it becomes this, you know, it's a conversation that we can have throughout the day, back and forth. Just go, okay, what about if we have this? What if we do this? What are we going to do on the weekend? Maybe we should go to the South Melbourne market. Or should we, should we go to the Preston market? Like all this. Like it adds this whole other element to our relationship, and I worry if we take it away, what will happen? Maybe we should break up. I don't know, but it is. I remember a friend saying about 5 years ago. She's like, "What?" And this is when I was single. She's like, "What do you want in a partner? You know, and if you put it out there, I reckon you'll meet him. I reckon you will." And I went, "I just want someone who, you know, when you're driving along, down around the Otways and you see a sign at a fence saying eggs for $4, someone who's going to stop and buy those eggs."
Oh, that's the most romantic thing I've ever
And I
heard.
found that person. So just put it out. Like, it's crazy how, I don't know, like you... like, I feel like I should be embarrassed, like admitting to all this stuff of how obsessed with food that we are, but I guess, you know, other people have other things that, you know, like that was the whole crux of our YouTube show, you know, Kate McCartney, who I work with on that show, has no interest in food whatsoever. Like, I would start talking about food and her eyes would just deaden the mention of food. Like, it's just not. Whereas if you talk to her about cats and animals, she will light up. And, you know, whereas
You say
I'm
cats and animals, I think about food.
So it's, you know, everyone has their thing, you know. And I think that film, that Foodies is, I found it quite, has anyone seen it? Did you find it sad? I found it quite sad. These people were so lonely. Like, it was, you know, there was a real loneliness to these, you know, and so many of them, they would go on their own as well, and that, you know, there was, I don't know, they just didn't have anyone to share that experience with, and it just seemed that, I don't know, there was something kind of missing from their lives, but I don't know, maybe I'm just being really judgmental by saying
Well, I mean, I guess they felt that they were sharing it in some way, you know, with their audiences, such as they may be. But, yeah, I mean, there is a very different kind of sharing that happens when you're actually sitting down with somebody.
Yeah.
And there's always people we know by their Instagram feeds, right? And it's that, I mean, there's one that I know, she's an emergency doctor, Doctors Without Borders type. So she spends her working year actually going to where people are literally starving to death, and she actually knows all about, like, you know, the way to buy a goat to feed the staff of the hospital for the month. But when she's not doing that, she's going off to, you know, restaurants in the top 50, and just with the sort of tenacity of a surgeon documenting every single, you know, sprig of sprout that shows up on everything. And the contrast between, you know, taking care of starving people in the Sudan and, you know, documenting your, you know, flayed reindeer penis at Noma.
Do you think, though, that what came first, the obsession with food, or has she just gotten a job, you know, at Medicine Sans Frontier just to ease her guilt?
She doesn't seem guilty at all.
Do you think knowing, like, things like, you know, who's in the top 50 and what the hot restaurant is, and if you forage or if you buy eggs that are free range, does that make you a foodie? Because if that makes you a foodie, I'm not a fucking foodie. Like, I don't really know who's in the top 50. I don't know who the best chefs in the world are supposed to be. I don't really forage. I don't, you know, I don't. I love food, and my day is governed by what I'm going to eat. And when I'm on holidays, I choose a holiday destination of where I want to eat. I couldn't care what's there, what historical artifacts could be found, what's the food like. Yeah, I'll go there. I don't know, what makes you a foodie?
I mean, that's one of the interesting things about food in the culture right now, is it has become so tribal in a certain way. I mean, you have it. It serves almost the same purpose in the culture that, like, rock and roll might have 30 years ago, where if you like punk rock, you were a different person than someone who liked new wave or who liked dance music or who liked. And now that you have Team Vegan, you have Team Nose to Tail, who are never happier than when they find like an ox spleen lying around somewhere. You have the locavore people who have to know the provenance of every single leaf of lettuce on their plate. You have the scientists who love going to restaurants where their food has been manipulated with more industrial products than it would take to like build an atomic bomb. And everybody in these individual tribes so fervently believes in what they believe. And it's a specific kind of people who know who the top 50 is, or even know that a top 50 exists.
Yeah.
But somebody who doesn't care about anything except finding the best bowl of pho can be as fanatical and as you're a foodie as somebody who is jetting off to go to Canroca because it's #1 in the rankings this year.
Is it?
It is.
Okay, great.
Now you know. Kate, why do you think that food's taken on such a big place in our culture?
I don't know if I speak for everyone, but I feel like there's a sense of control with food that you, like and even I guess for financial reasons, there's seems to be a lot of things that are unattainable, or I don't know, like the world just seems to be crazy. Like it's a crazy place, but I can go and have a nice meal, and I can cook a nice meal. I can go to the market and I can buy something and I can take it back and cook it in my kitchen, or get my partner to cook it in my kitchen. And this is my little domain that I have all of control over all these elements. Or I can go to a restaurant and have this lovely experience that's not going to cost me my week's wages. So there's all these little kind of attainable things that are small little things, and I think the financial side of things, I think is you can go and have a degustation somewhere. You can save up and go, okay, I'm going to go to Vue de Monde for a special occasion, and know that the person sitting next to you, that they're just there on a Thursday night having dinner. It doesn't, it's not a special occasion to them, but that you can sit there next to someone who's loaded and I'm a comedian. Like that's, like there's something quite cool about that. Yeah. I think that there's not as much of a jump between, class when you're talking about food. Definitely. Anyone can have a good rib,
Yeah, or a good gelati, because I think that, what do you think, that it's not that expensive to go and have a gelati, to have this peak experience that everyone is talking about?
Yeah, so it's accessible, and it brings, what's the word I'm looking for? It sort of brings people together, as you say. It's anyone can go and do it, and especially for our business, it's a very low price point. You don't have to think too much about it. You see it on Instagram, you think that sounds amazing. You look at duck fat caramel and you go, I want it, and it costs you $5. So it's very different though to a high-end restaurant, I suppose. Yeah.
But I think it is that there's a lot of care that goes into the product, and there is some
Absolutely.
of those same.
But people don't necessarily have to think about that. In our business, there's so much that goes into the way we produce our product, but we don't care if anyone knows that. When we don't really care if they know the story behind it, as long as when they put it that tiny little bit in their mouth that they have a great experience.
So how different is that to when you ran restaurants? Do you find this more relaxing, or is it just a development? Like, how do you put those things together?
From a business point of view, it's a hell of a lot easier because you don't have to deal with sommeliers and chefs, no offence, but chefs can be pretty crazy at times.
Shane wouldn't know anything about that.
And so from our point of view, it's a much easier thing for us to get our heads around, and it's always changing. It's an easy concept for people to buy into. You don't have to think, I'm going to spend $150 on a degger. You can just go and do it, and you can do it 3 times a week and feel all right about it.
Yeah.
So it's much easier for us.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, I'd love, Shane, just to show a little reel of the upcoming spice journey, and then get you to talk a little bit about communicating food through TV.
Melbourne is both my home and the location of my restaurant, Maha.
It's here that I serve up a menu of Middle Eastern and Mediterranean dishes in a style I call unrestricted.
There's some beautiful flavours in there, a bit of date, a bit of eggplant.
Oh, you can taste it all?
Yeah,
good.
Beautiful.
But before they're served at the restaurant, they need to be invented.
And this is where the magic really happens, my test kitchen. Perfect.
It's here that I get to experiment and play with the treasures I brought back from the other side of the world. Over the years, I found inspiration cooking in kitchens all over the Middle East and Mediterranean. Now I'm searching here in Morocco.
No.
I'm going to get trouble over here. It's not tied enough. Over thousands of years, waves of migration have all added their own ingredients into the complex mix of this country's cookery.
So you're going to warm it on the lid and then crush it in your hands? Really? That's a secret I didn't know.
But here's where it gets interesting.
For over 1,000 years, the Moors ruled vast parts of southern Spain, bringing with them their culture and their cuisine. That's a really good dish. You know, I'm in love with jamón, so anything that jamon's in. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thanks.
I'm going to travel from Morocco into Andalusia.
And this is what I love about Spanish food. It's got that sort of Middle Eastern baseline, but it's taken it to a whole nother level.
I'm going to seek out the best recipes, techniques and ideas.
And this is where the real test will happen. Each new dish will be cooked up by me and my team to paying customers. And what will be the verdict? Right, so if you had to sum up the meal, give it a score out of 10.
So come with me on a chef's tour like no other.
Looks great.
Come with me on a Moorish spice journey.
Order in.
There you go.
Yeah, it looks great, Shane.
Oh, there you go.
I feel like I want to have an everyone look under your seats moment, and we all pull out and there's a beautiful dish of food for us to eat.
And if you look underneath your seat, there's a gelato messina for everyone. Well, look, that's what you call a sizzle reel. So, look, Spice Journey 3 is going to air mid-October. Mid-October, they told us today. So, look, it's great. It was, we've the past couple of series we've done Lebanon and Turkey, Iran, Malta. I think that's everywhere. And now we sort of get to go into North Africa and see Moorish food, which is the progression through the spice trade and into Andalusia, which was really exciting because it's the first time we ventured out into Spain and get to see what food can be when it's unshackled. You know, the Moors ruled Spain for 800, or the south of Spain for over 800 years, and once they were kicked out, they had this really good base of Arabic learning and philosophy and art, and then some things faded away, like all the Arabic architecture and all that kind of died away and was sort of rebranded as Christian and said this is ours now. But the food sort of really went onto another tangent. The introduction of pork was great. But also the fortification of wine and spirits, like it was sherry, which was technology brought in by the Moors and the Phoenicians, led to a really great cuisine. And what it did for me going through to Spain was seeing where the Middle Eastern food that I loved could end up. So we don't cook we don't cook traditional food. We don't cook traditional Middle Eastern food. There's thousands of people who do it. Mum cooks it great, and all the people I know do it amazingly. You can go to a lot of traditional restaurants and get a good feed. We just try to take that base and cook it in an unrestricted manner. So, unrestricted by politics, by religion, by race, by gender, by history, anything. So, what do you want me to talk about?
All that, and I'd love you to talk about the experience of sharing food on film. Like, how different is that to serving up a plate of food to someone in a restaurant? How do you get it across?
Oh, it's hard, because we go to a lot of different countries, and even though traditionally it's been Arabic countries, but when you go into Turkey, I don't speak Turkish, and you're dealing with mums and dads and people in villages that don't really speak much English either. So it's really hard, and they've got this love for what they do. They make one dish. I remember these two ladies in Kayseri in Turkey making manta, which is one of the oldest forms of folded pasta. Little dumplings filled with lamb, tiny, really little filled things cooked with yogurt and sumac and mint and amazing stuff. And they didn't speak a word of English. So getting their love and their passion and their sort of skill for this product out of them, because they're scared too, there's cameras and all that stuff, getting it out of them, making them feel relaxed, and so we can share it with the viewing public. It's hard work. Half your time spent before the cameras are on is just spent time with them, trying to build a rapport and making them feel comfortable so they can share this gift that they have with me on film. And when all you've got is like emojis, because no one speaks English, it's really hard, it's really hard. But once you can actually get that, the food is the sort of the barrier breaker. Food's the communicator. Once we get all around and they see that I love what they're doing and that I love food and that I want to get in there and make it with them and I'm really sort of in awe of their skill, then it's kind of like they're relaxed and they're happy that I'm there, and they can see it as an opportunity to show people what they're really great at.
Fantastic. I can't wait to see it.
The new series, I'm really happy, to be bluntly honest, the first time we went to do Spice Journey in Lebanon, I'd done a little bit of crappy TV, like on Ready Steady Cook and stuff like that, and it was good to sort of wet my toes. But I'm not a presenter; I'm a cook, and I had the opportunity to start in TV. I was 28 when I opened Maha, and it was a good opportunity to promote our business and get it out there. And social media wasn't so big, in 2007 when we opened. Twitter and Instagram wasn't even around, but and Twitter just kind of started hatching and. So the only way you can get it out is sort of like traditional media, the paper, the radio, TV. So when I had an opportunity to jump on and do some stuff, I kind of jumped at it because, I'd mortgaged my house and put every cent I had in there to get it out there. And, it was just okay. I was all right. People seemed to like it and we did all right. And when we did the Spice Journey pilot, I was kind of wrapped. I thought, are you seriously going to send me over to Lebanon and eat? Fuck yeah, all right. No problem. We ate and it was great, but it was really, really confronting. Really hard work. We had a really small team. It's SBS, it's one cameraman who's also the director and me. And that's it. No sound recorders you pick up over there, guide you pick up over there. You're on the road for 2.5 months. We had a 3-month-old baby at home. The restaurant was still in its infancy, so you're taking away a lot of time from that. So it was really confronting, really hard. You learn a lot. But Series 3 now, it's better. We've experienced it. We've done 3 series. We've got a better crew. And the team that I work with now are exceptional. They make me look pretty good. And we've got an edgier show. It's formatted differently. It's cut differently. We've got funky cameras that fly in the sky and ones that sort of like are steady cams. And it's just like, I looked at it. I saw some rough cuts the other day and I went, oh.
I'm glad you say that, Shane, because we're just writing the 2nd series of the catering show at the moment, and we're kind of working on this idea that we've got a bigger budget. So our opening shot is with a drone, and then we're going to bring a drone into the kitchen. Yeah. So I'm glad that we thought we were being silly.
If anyone brings a fucking drone in the restaurant, that's where I call that's the it. No drones in the restaurant.
Okay, it's going to happen. Let's have a little look at the catering show.
Hi, I'm Kate McLennan. This week on Catering, we're exploring sustainable and ethical eating in our slow food episode. So let's go.
I'm Kate McCarthy. Red meat needs red wine, apparently, and this is the only red wine I own. It was given to me in 2002 when I started a sketch comedy series for Channel 7 called Big Bite.
Were you in that?
Yes, I was.
I don't remember you in that at all.
No, I was in it.
Who else was in it? That was the one. No, Charlie Clausen was in that, wasn't he?
He was, yes.
Home and Away.
It's a Shiraz, and
was
it's
Andrew O'Keefe in it?
yes.
He was in it, wasn't he?
Yes.
Oh, that's the one Chris Lilly was in, wasn't it? Like, that's where he kind of got his start and everything, isn't it? Gosh. Like, hasn't his career just sort of gone from strength? Like, it's just skyrocketed, hasn't it? Like, he must have so much money. Like, he must just be rolling in it. It's like if he was a kid and he had a vision board and like just had all of his dreams up on there. It's like he's just ticked everything off. But you're doing well, aren't you? You know, you're doing a web series.
Thanks.
Okay, well, should we give it a bit of a taste test?
Yep.
That has gone bad. Oh, much like your career.
Very good.
Shane, do you use in your show lots of cutaways of actually composing the meal? And because we found that what we need to do is just get lots of shots of just stirring of a pot or just lots of chopping, like kitchen business, and then you just, whenever you stuff up your delivery to camera, you just then cut to the shot of cutting a leek or something. Is that what you do in your show as well, or are you a bit more professional?
No, we do heaps of cutaways, but generally it's not to mask up that we've stuffed up. The cameramen are always asking, oh wait, let me get a cutaway of you picking up the salt. I'm like, you've got me picking up salt fucking 12 times. It's the same bowl, but okay. It's funny, the pressure cooker, I saw you using that. They're actually pretty good.
Yeah, that's my pressure cooker. It's great.
I've never really used them much, but this series, The Spice Journey, going through Morocco and everything, you're doing tagines, and not everybody wants to cook with a tagine at home, and even in Spain, rabo de toro, a braised bull tail, awesome dish. A lot of people haven't got hours and hours and hours to cook it, and I started using a pressure cooker on the show. Fuck, kick ass. Really good, really, really good.
That's everyone talks about slow cooking. It's like, no, do
Fast
the pressure
cooking.
cooker. And it's risky, there's an element of danger to it. It might explode in your face. It's, it takes dining to a new level. Yeah.
Make for, good television, bit of an exploding pressure cooker. Now, I think we'd better talk about emojis, because I want to know, Emily, why you are doing your blog in emojis. Tell me how that came about.
Well, I wanted to start a food blog for ages, but the idea of telling my friends that I have a food blog just bored me, and I couldn't bring myself to just start a food blog, and I'm like, I need to think of an idea on top of the food blog. So I spent ages thinking about it, and then one day I was lying on the couch and I'm like, emojis. And so I started Emoji Food Review, and as a kind of joke type thing, but it's actually really interesting reviewing food with emojis, because it makes you, it's challenging, because there's not an emoji for cheese. And so I was complaining about that to one of my friends one day, and he's like, oh, well, here's the emoji for cheese. And he used 20 emojis in all the different processes with the cows and the heat and the cooling. And I'm like, he's like, see, there is an emoji for cheese. So it's a challenge to explain food in that way. But at the same time, lots of people don't get it. My grandpa's like, so there was a bowl of noodles and it was on fire. I'm like, no, it was hot. Oh my God, Jesus. But then I have the emojis up the top, and then I translate it. I sound like a dickhead.
Sorry, the Egyptians did it for a while. It's like hieroglyphs.
Yeah. Well, it kind of is like you were saying. You can use it to people who don't speak English. You can write in emojis. It's kind of liberating like that, but it also is a massive joke.
Well, I think it's so funny, and as someone who's all about words, I just love trying to find the right word. And I know you write as well, but I just found it liberating, funny, modern. I just thought it was just really cool.
Well, it's not just reviews, it's actually also recipes. So if anybody wants to make a pizza with hot chips for the base, there's an emoji recipe for that on the website.
Okay, get onto it. Jonathan, I'd love you to talk a little bit about the way that you communicate through words and the way that you approach your restaurant reviews. Can you talk about how you start writing about a restaurant?
Well, first I go to the restaurant.
Number one, very important.
You're a restaurant critic, so you know, like, how much of the time is spent actually trying to figure out what to write about. I mean, there are so many restaurants. In LA, there are 30,000. I'm sure in Melbourne there are,
yeah, it's around
many
15,000.
And you have to find a place that's going to tell a story. Some of what you're writing about is the new hot restaurant, which is unavoidable. You have to write about that. But the interesting part is finding the place that's going to sort of illustrate the context of where you live, or illustrate a certain way of living. I think that if you own a posh Italian restaurant in Beverly Hills, you'd be very disappointed that I was the restaurant critic, because I don't, unless the food's superb, I just don't care. Where if somebody is taken over a lunch counter in a strange industrial neighborhood that has 4 seats and they're doing just brilliant Filipino food, I'm there. I'm probably the day you open.
Right.
And the chefs and the cooks who are pushing the process forward are not always, or even usually, the ones who have the capital to open grand restaurants. So it's looking on the fringes and looking on the edges is where you find the most interesting things to write about, I think.
And how do you balance the food that you're eating and the story that you want to tell about the people running the restaurant?
Well, I don't interview chefs usually. There's a firewall between the chef and the critic. I don't hang out. I don't go to parties with them. I don't go to openings. I don't go to special events, because I have to be able to write negatively. I have to be able to not like something a chef is doing. So a lot of it is going into a restaurant, and it's almost like being a detective, right? You go into a Chinese place you haven't been into before, that you haven't heard of. It has a menu that has certain dishes on it. Where are these dishes from? Is this it has a certain kind of meat pie and a certain kind of dumpling. That means it's probably Shandong or close to Shandong. There's a lot of sea cucumber that's used as sort of thickeners in dumplings, and that could put it to a specific city like Dalian. You're always looking for little clues of what's going on. Yeah. And that's the fun part. And it's the amazing thing is that if you do your research, you do your homework, and you taste carefully, you are not often wrong. And sometimes you'll go to a place that will say they're Shanghainese, but they'll actually be, from Wuhan, and you can tell that from 3 noodle dishes that they have. And, that's a lot of fun. And it says something that somebody from Wuhan would want to say that they were from Shanghai to begin with.
So do you feel like your job is to explain to your readers about the different noodles, or just to tell them where to get a nice dinner?
I don't claim to be an expert. I don't put myself forward as an expert. I probably am. I mean, I've written a lot, and I've done this a lot, and I've been to many thousands of review meals. But to me, the element of discovery, of going into a place I haven't been to before, and sort of figuring out what the mysteries are, figuring out the secrets, figuring out exactly what it is that the chef is trying to do, and then evaluating how well he or she is doing it in his or her own terms, I think, to me, is the most interesting thing.
And what are the particular pleasures or challenges of doing that in LA?
Los Angeles is, much like Melbourne, but probably on a much bigger scale, is home to so many people from so many different parts of the world. And on one hand, you can look at somebody you can figure out that somebody's doing dishes, from, say, Nicaragua's East Coast, and you can put that into things that you read and recipe books that you see on what they might be cooking in that region. But part of the thing that makes it really interesting is the way that everybody interacts with one another. So the Thai restaurant that has a mostly Salvadoran clientele, because the people from El Salvador like the spiciness of a particular fish soup they do, or a place that has Vietnamese refugees who live in Texas who cook Louisiana Cajun style seafood for Cantonese.
Wow. It's a great mashup.
It's like playing pool, right? You just watch everything bounce off.
Fantastic. Declan, do you want to introduce your clip? We'll play that before we go to some questions.
We were just talking about, obviously photographing food, and we made something for, we do a lot of collaborations, and we made something for HBO for the launch of a series of True Blood. And this is kind of like the pinnacle of making something. We didn't make it to be photographed or filmed, but it's one of those things that just ended up being that thing. I'll explain it to you. We sent it out to press and PR. It was in the shape of a human heart, spread red. It had a hollow centre in it. It was all gelato with a hollow chocolate centre. It went in a little blood bank esky. You got a jar of blood, which was blood plum jam, and a big syringe with instructions on how to put it into the heart, and then you were just told to open it, and when you opened it, it kind of oozed everywhere, and it just went completely nuts. People just went absolutely crazy for it, but I'll show you what it looks like. Look, yeah. It's interesting. We didn't make that for that purpose, but it shows you that when you make something that's kind of clever in that sense, it can really, we don't sell that. We made that thing, and it suddenly gave people this picture of what we are as a business, that we think about how we create food and what it looks like and how much fun it can be, but at the same time tastes fantastic as well. So,
how many of those did you make?
Not many. We sent them mostly to press and PR because HBO wanted to do it. We sold maybe 50 in the shop or something like that. It wasn't many, but it's a lot of fun. I mean, food can be fun. I think we can be a bit too serious and go, well, you can't take photos of your food because it's become quite clear. You are a massive foodie, but you're not the type of foodie where there's those negative connotations of people spending too much time taking photos of their food while it goes cold and melts, you know what I mean? So I suppose, that's the other side of the...
Yeah. Danny, you said before about, communicating through film and, what we've done. The biggest, the best thing about being able to do Spice Journey is that SBS put out a mandate early on, like in 2008, saying they wanted to do a show about the Middle East, and they put out this mandate, gave it all to all the production companies, and said, "You guys work it out. Who comes up with the best pitch gets the show." And I swear I must have had about 7 different production companies come to me and say, we're doing a show in the Middle East and it's this, we're thinking about having you in it. And they all came with the same thing. We're doing a show in the Middle East. And then the last production company came, we were Essential Media, who we're dealing with, and they do like the, that one in Tassie, what's it, with...
Gourmet Farmer.
Gourmet Farmer, they produce that, which is a great show. And then they came and said, yeah, Shane, if you were to do a show in the Middle East, what would you want to do? Jobs. You get the job. And it was really good because I hadn't even thought about it. And it gave me a chance to actually say, well, I don't know, let me have a think about it, and I come back to you. And all I wanted to do is say, look, I'd love a show that showcases the countries for what they are, shows the people for who they are, and the food for what it really is. With no agenda, I don't have to sell anything, I don't want a script to read off, and I don't want to have to be told what I can and can't say. And if you can tick those boxes, you've got yourself a fat chef. And they were cool with it. And it worked out really well, because I think that if anything, I didn't want to do a food show, like a reality food show, and I mark my words, you will never see me doing a reality food show. You'll never see me with an earpiece in going, yes, but what if you thought, it's just, I can't do it. So I can't do that, and they were really, really, really adamant that it wouldn't be a food, like a reality food show. And it was a great way for us to showcase what we wanted to get across, and I think we've done that. If anything, with Spice Journey, we've showed that the countries are great that we go to. They're not what you hear on CNN. Now, we went to Iran. We showed Iran for what it was. We showed the food. We showed the people. They were happy. We were happy. We had a great response from the Iranian community back here in Australia. Heaps of emails thanking us for showing their country for what it was without any sort of prejudice, which is, for me, tick. That's all we wanted to achieve. Food, people, done.
Yeah.
So I think that was a really good thing.
Food is such a fantastic way to cut through and get to what matters to people, and it is a positive space. So I think it goes to what you were saying before, Kate. It's like the world can be pretty crazy and out of control, but food is where good things happen. And I think all of you work in that space, definitely. Now I'm sure that we've got people out there that would love to fire some questions at you. So do you want to put up your hands? I think we've got a mic.
The kind of restaurants that are in the film, I won't tend to do negative ones on. I'll just ignore them, because what's the point of saying you can drive 23 miles and under the freeway overpass behind the dry cleaners, you'll find a Lebanese restaurant that's absolutely horrible. There's no point in it. When I write negative reviews, it's generally of really well financed, sort of heavily mediated part of the dialogue restaurants. I mean, I will write and have written really negative reviews of, say, Gordon Ramsay restaurants.
Well, I think it's restaurants where people have a reasonable expectation that they would be good, and then it's a responsibility almost to tell them that they're not.
Right, but when you're and you don't want anybody to waste money on a bad meal. You don't want anybody to follow you to a place just because it follows one trend or another, where they're going to be treated badly and where they're going to eat badly. But as far as the smaller restaurateurs, I mean, they will exist in their ecosystem whether or not I write them up. And if they're bad enough for me to close them, they're bad enough to fail on their own, and I'll just prefer to let it happen that way.
Yeah.
It's a weird profession. I mean, I know I've said this a lot this week, but as a film critic, if you write a bad review of Batman Returns, somehow Warner Brothers will be around next week. But if you write a bad review of a restaurant, you're sometimes putting 40, 50 people out of work for no reason other than you have an aesthetic opinion. And so it's not wrong to do that, but you have to have a really good reason to do that.
And it's good that you got that ethical conscience where you're aware of that. And a lot of people who take to their keyboard when they get home suddenly become a keyboard warrior and start slagging you out on whatever social platform it is, Don't think about the 50 or so people that are employed, their families, and the effort and blood, sweat and tears they put in to produce that meal, and you might just not have liked it. Doesn't mean it's shit. It doesn't mean that, you may not like the decor in a restaurant. It doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means that you didn't like it. But the 100 or so other people in the restaurant may have. But now your opinion is there, and 1 star, worst experience I've ever had in my life.
Well, it's amazing how many of those negative reviews are about a very particular experience, and often very personal, about a particular server or something that happened. Like, any waiter can spill the soup on you. But I think if you're writing professionally about restaurants, then you will be able to look past the particularity to the general and work out if a place is actually badly run or not. And then that's the story that you need to take out to your readers.
Yeah, they're not evil. They might be bad at their jobs, but they're not evil.
Another question?
I haven't been here very long. I mean, I had, I had some brilliant food at Cumulus. I mean, the oysters were maybe the best I've ever had, and the charcuterie program is brilliant. And yeah, that's been the highlight so far.
Cool.
I know it's not a new restaurant to anybody, but
no, but it's an old favourite, and the standard there is always fantastic. Down the front.
If it's good, you just start anywhere and you just keep coming back.
I eat a lot, man. I just start it's like a machine gun. I just go, I want that, and I want that, and I want that, and I want. And the server's looking at me going, "You're not going to eat all that." And I'm like, "Yeah, just bring it."
Yeah.
And I'll try to get through it.
Yeah, I try when I'm looking at a new menu for the first time of say a Chinese restaurant and it has 200 things. I try to bring what I might know about what kind of food they're trying to serve, and I'll try to find dishes that are really characteristic of the region. If it's, say, I know we just said Shandong, but if it's a Shandong style restaurant, you order the dumplings. How thin is the skin? How fluffy is the filling? Is it steamed in a way that it's coherent, or do things separate? Are the flavors clear? You try to do at first the few dishes that you think that they would have to be at least competent at and hopefully brilliant at, and you go from there. But if you're going to a place that's a Hong Kong style restaurant and you order the kung pao fish, you're missing the point. It's there because people order it, but it's not necessarily what you would order.
Okay.
I always like doing the spying on other people's tables and doing, what's that? What's that?
Yeah.
That kind of works.
I just look for things on there that I think I'm going to like. If I feel like fish, I look through the fish section. But I sit there and go, what do I feel like? What does everyone? Yeah, I feel like some fish. Yeah, that and that and that. And what about some of the dumplings? Yeah, I have those. I feel like some veggies, and I'll flick through the veggies. I'll scroll through the whole lot, and I go, that, and that. And then I'll just work my way through it.
Emily, how did you decide what to eat at the Ballarat Pizza Hut All You Can Eat? Recently reviewed on Emoji Food Review.
That was a Thousands review. That didn't get the emoji treatment.
Oh no, you've got to do that.
Yeah. What was the question? I'm so embarrassed.
How did you decide what to eat from the multiplicity of options?
I got
just everything. Okay.
The salad bar was a confusing mess. The Parmesan cheese was labelled Thousand Island dressing. The pizzas were disgusting. But the dessert bar was, as I remember it, and it was actually kind of cute.
All right.
But not worth travelling 100 kilometres if you're thinking of doing that.
If I were here a little longer than I was, and if I weren't doing quite so many events for the festival, I read Danny in Los Angeles. I look at the Good Food Guide. I look at Time Out. I look at everything that most people would. I hope to go this weekend to just put some shoe leather down in some suburbs and see what I can find. I mean, I keep hearing about, brilliant Vietnamese food. And people don't tend to agree about where it is, but I'd like to.
I know a good place in St Albans I can take you to. It's pretty good. No one else has probably been there, but
and in different parts of the world, I have different things. Like in Italy, I'm in love with this guide called Osteria d'Italia that's put out by the slow food people, and it's crap in the cities, right? You use it to try to figure out where to eat in Rome or Florence or Venice, and you're dead. But it's really good at finding, the weird, completely regional, trattoria that's up in some mountain hamlet somewhere. So sometimes you just find guides that you love. In Los Angeles, I have all different things. I have stacks of phone books. I have ways of like sorting through internet stuff. I mean, Google Translate is my best friend now, right? Because you can you can read something on a Korean restaurant, and you can at least know what the specialties are and probably what region it's from, even if you don't read everything. Google Translate is really good for doing, say, like Chinese language discussion sites, which are super thorough and super opinionated and super fun. Well, firstly, it's not that subjective. There's fish that's properly cooked and there's fish that's not properly cooked. There's a sauce that's done correctly and there's a sauce that's not done correctly. I mean, yes, everybody has his or her own taste, and maybe somebody likes a little more salt in something than something else. But basically, we all know when something is done spot on and when something is not done spot on. And in terms of restaurants changing, it's true. Sometimes I'll walk past a restaurant that'll have a review of mine in my window, in the window that is old enough to buy me a drink. And obviously my opinion of the restaurant in 1989 is not particularly relevant to the way that it is in 2015. That being said, I do this, 101 best restaurants every year, and I go to every one of the restaurants on that list within the year that I write it in. So I try to keep things as current as I can.
I think things definitely do change, and that's why, for example, the Good Food Guide reviews every restaurant each year, and you could argue that a lot things could change 2 or 3 times in a year, and sometimes it does. I think generally I try to take my personal preferences out of it. So I might love lamb ribs, but I'll try to, I won't eat them everywhere. Having said that, I'll have control dishes. So, for example, if I'm reviewing Japanese restaurants, maybe I'll try, one particular, the okonomiyaki or whatever it is, the tempura, whatever it is in each restaurant that I'm visiting. So you've got something that you can benchmark against. But generally, I'll try to keep what I think out of it and think about what the reader might want to know. And that's bringing everything you might know about a cuisine or a restaurant or an experience to bear. I think it's really crucial as a critic that you look past those, and just as I said before, something that happened in the moment might be emblematic of the restaurant or it might be irrelevant. And I think hopefully what I can do through experience is just know which one is which. So, the fish was cooked really badly because, that can happen to anyone. That can happen in a great restaurant. But if the fish is always cooked badly, then it's probably saying more about the restaurant.
And it becomes sort of a Zen thing, right? That it doesn't matter. You have personal preferences, we all do, but in a certain way, when you're reviewing, you rise above those personal preferences. that if there's, if you're ordering tempura, maybe they're doing the kind of prawn you like, or maybe they're not, but you can tell whether it's great tempura or not.
Yeah, the most important thing in restaurant criticism is to take the restaurant on its own terms. So there's no point going to a pho place and complaining because there's no tablecloths. So that is always my starting point. Like, what are they trying to do? Are they succeeding? And then, everything else comes after that.
Do you go to restaurants multiple times before you review them, or do you?
I think Jonathan's credit card works better than mine, so I think he does more revisits.
Right.
For me, it's about, do I feel like I've got it? So I'll definitely go back when I feel like I didn't have an experience that was representative, and then you go back multiple times. But often my budget and timeline doesn't allow me to visit numerous times.
And when I'm doing a formal review, I'm always there at least 4 or 5 times.
Right.
I mean, even those restaurants that only have one dish.
Wow.
Some of my favorite restaurants, actually.
How do you fit it all in? Do you go to multiple restaurants a day?
I do about. Well, yeah, I'll do lunch and I'll do dinner. I'll do about 10 review meals a week. When I was the critic was hired to be the critic at Gourmet Magazine in New York, 15 years ago, I actually had them put it in my contract that when I was doing travel pieces, I didn't have to eat more than 3 meals a day. Because sometimes when I was working for magazines like Food and Wine and Travel and Leisure, and I was going to places, you do find that there are those 12 restaurant days that just make you want to slit your own throat.
Yeah, like second lunch, second dinner, that gets old after a couple of days.
We get a lot more good reviews than bad reviews, but I can tell you that when we get a bad review, even though not a review or just comments, Yelp, whatever, I still can't help but feel mortally offended by it and pissed off by it, because a lot of the time it can be something where the normal course of action would be email that business and say something was wrong or someone served me badly, I had bad service. But there's this thing where the immediate form of communication is to do it in a public forum. And I have to say, myself and my business partners are guilty of getting quite pissed off. We really care about what we do, and it takes time to brush it off. Even though it's like 1 in 100 and less, it still gets you every time.
No, I agree. I personally reply to every review that we get on TripAdvisor, or what's the other one?
Zomato.
That one.
So do I, but it doesn't always go well, does it?
We acknowledge everybody that's taken the time to write or cast judgment on what we do. We take the time to reply, and I think it's our right of reply to reply to the positive and to the negative. When we're reviewed by a professional, if we are kicked in the nuts, we take it and we go, well, they're actually got an educated opinion. It's their job. They know what they're talking about. What good can we take out of this? What bad can we take this? And what part are we just going to say get stuffed? And we take it on board, and we really do take it on board. Even with reviews that we get by the general public, who are our supporters, who give me the opportunity to put food on the table for my family. We take it all on board, and to heart, like you. It's nothing more heartbreaking than busting out 80 hours in the week, and then everybody's knackered and the staff are exhausted, and you've made budget, woohoo, and then you read a review a week or 2 weeks later because it takes a while for them to process. That just drags you over coals, and it might be something stupid, like you're saying, that with the normal course of action would be a phone call or an email to the proprietor saying, look, I really had this bad experience, and I've personally flown people back from Sydney who have taken the time and said, look, we saved our money, we've watched your show, we came all the way from Sydney, and we were really let down because of X, Y, and Z. Well, I was heartbroken.
Yeah.
My team, I was so, not angry, but heartbroken. But they did the right thing. They sent it to me.
There's a way to say it as well. Some people will say it very politely and just say, look, I'm really sorry, but it was absolutely shit. Yeah. And then other people will say it in a manner that you've ruined their lives. And I've just spent $5 at Gelato Messina. And I didn't get a piece of pretzel in my scoop, and I want a $50 gift voucher, and I want it now. And they're the ones that really annoy you.
No, it's hard. It's really hard. But
those foodies.
Yeah. Well, like with everything, there's a right way to communicate to people in the street, and there's a right way and there's a wrong way to do it. It's really hard when you just get somebody who's ranting, and about something that's irrelevant. But because it's hard to brush off.
Yeah, it is.
We're involved in food because I can't speak on your behalf, but I love what I do.
You do.
The day I start thinking about what I do as a job, I'll start looking for a job that pays better. I love what we do. I get up in the morning and I just live my day. Take my daughter to school, I come to the restaurant, and whatever happens. We have a great day, but when you get something like that, it really rips you to shreds, and I find it really hard to get over. Like my wife goes, just calm down, it was some dickhead that you never got. I'm like, fuck, I'm sorry, not rip his throat out.
Yeah, you do.
But you just have to deal with it. It's a part of the game. You take bullets.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I think supporting local is amazing. If you've got the capacity to do it, if you've got the passion to do it, and the resources are available, and it's something that you really are focused on, amazing. I'm a big advocate for sustainability and supporting things in your local community. The only time it gets hard from an operator's point of view is when you can't, because sometimes that comes at a cost. All right, sometimes that really comes at a cost for the operator, and when you can't pass that cost on to the customer, then there's an issue. Because like you say, okay, I want to buy beef that's from Victoria, and I want to buy something that's grass-fed, and you might be able to find that product, and it may be exceptional and far better to anything else that you can buy, but it may come at a higher rate. Now, unless the customer or the consumer is willing to pay for that, I have an issue. Because it's okay for my moral judgment, but unless I can actually pay the staff and pay the bills and pay for the toilet and the toilet paper in the toilet, that's when it becomes an issue for me. But for an actual ethos, all for it. For me.
There was this week. There was an article. I think it's in New South Wales. There was a farmer up. Maybe it was up near the border around Albury, where a farmer was growing beef in a certain way, and he had received complaints from neighbours or something about smelling too much or something. And all of these chefs in Sydney have put forward a recommendation to not have, basically protecting his way of farming, because they use his produce. And I thought that was really interesting that chefs are getting that involved in how their meat and how their vegetables and are coming to their restaurants. Like they're willing to sort of get quite political, I suppose, and really get their hands dirty.
Yeah, so I think we're talking about Blackmore Beef in Gippsland, and Neil Perry's put his hand up with a change.org petition. So I think chefs are definitely, it becomes part of what their restaurant is all about, is to be able to put that produce on the plate. So it's definitely a big connection.
And as consumers, as people who go to restaurants, I think it's important for us to basically vote on things with our dollars. I mean, is the idea of having sustainable, local, well-raised beef important to us, as opposed to having, hideous stuff from factory farms? Is it important to us that our children and our grandchildren be able to have oceans that have bluefin tuna in them, instead of eating them on sushi, even though they'll be extinct in a decade or two if we keep eating it at the same rate? Are we looking for vegetables and grain that are raised in a way that's compatible with with sustainability, of having the environment stay more or less as it is? And we get to do that. We get to choose. We get to choose whether we're going to eat fast food hamburgers that are despoiling the rainforest, or we're going to have beautifully raised stuff from near us. And sometimes it's more expensive, and sometimes it's a lot harder, but I think it's something we all need to do.
That's a good note to leave it on. Will you please join me in thanking Jonathan, Emily, Declan, Kate and Shane? Fantastic.